they're against free speech.
Absolutely.
They're thought policing. If they manage to ban the word woke or any kind of discussion about it or whatever, like, how do they not see that that's what it is? It's the same thing as, the commie witch hunt in the 50s and stuff. It's just throw everything we don't like under this term, and this is actually a threat to our country and our values. DeSantis officials finally tell us what woke means.
Do you guys think it's true that he's like that DeSantis has started like taking like the Trump gestures?
Oh,
to, like,
absolutely.
to in an attempt to get some of that support.
I mean, he has a lot of the same support that a lot of people that supported Trump are for DeSantis. He essentially is Trump in terms of like what he would do. The only difference is that would actually be an effective fascist.
Yeah,
Trump was.
He's
kind of a bumbling, right? He's smarter and he's more. He understands optics better. Whereas Trump is just a clown, a goofball that
And I feel like DeSantis is also like an actual fascist, like he's an actual dangerous person. Trump would do like Trump is just a populist, It's like he just wants people to like him.
Yeah, he likes to get a reaction. Like he's an old TV personality and stuff. So like in Trump's mind, he's like, if I'm getting a reaction, that's a good thing, which kind of tends to be people on YouTube as well. Seems like whether it's a good reaction or not just doesn't matter.
That's how come with Trump you get this mix. Some things he says are just like wildly racist, and then sometimes just goes up there and bitches about toilet water for a half hour.
All right, so let's see, because as I've talked about before, and woke is not a valid criticism. We did a whole couple of videos on my channel, and we've talked about it too, how it's so overused and it's so ambiguous. And then like that debate we had to define what woke means really before we got started, right? And it fell apart instantly.
Well, then we should define the term right now. That way there's no more confusion going on.
Absolutely, we should.
What does woke mean to you?
I told them, I was like, I don't think it means anything. What does it mean to you guys?
Well,
they didn't know how to take that.
I don't think it means anything.
And the reason I say I don't think it means anything is because I can't see any coherent, consistent usage. And then the one guy, he basically just started going off about his sisters and feminism.
I have 7 sisters, so growing up, I, grew up in a very feminist household.
Like, what do you, and that's kind of the thing is they all have this specific idea to a degree of what it means. And then the other guy, Jim.
Popular term for woke is raising perceived groups that are at a disadvantage to a higher level and promoting them more.
He started talking about the blacks,
i.e., blacks,
the Asians,
the other races, the gays, all that, and putting them on a plateau and making them the highlight of the conversation.
And then he ended up saying that.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Before we go any further, I want it on the record. I do not believe in wokeness. I want that said straight out.
Okay.
So what are we talking about then?
Yeah.
Like if
what? No, because I'm trying to. Okay.
It's just incoherent. Watch my video. We break it down. It's incoherent. And even whenever they can describe what it is, like in that Mahler thread subreddit, a couple of them ended up just at the end saying, I don't think it really means anything anyway, and it doesn't mean much to me. It's a word that doesn't mean anything to me personally. But this above is what I've come to assume. Okay, actually, this comment is brilliant because it says everything. It says that woke is a thought-terminating cliche that whoever that is hearing it is they're filling it with all of their own subjective ideas of what they think it is. And yeah, there's probably a lot of overlap with what that means to different people, but there's also not. in some cases, because I've seen people say it about climate change being mentioned in media, like, oh, they mentioned climate change as if it's a real thing. That's woke. I saw people talking about COVID vaccines and shit is woke too. Like,
is the new moon? Is that a Roland Emmerich Moon movie? Is that woke? That's environment that counts. Moonfall.
And and actually some stuff that's woke, like The Boys, I think it's a masterpiece or whatever. And I consider Arcane and The Boys as woke, and they are freaking amazing. So woke is not bad, not inherently bad.
Okay.
So therefore, it's like, so it doesn't mean anything. Stop using it. Using it as a criticism means nothing.
Yeah, they use it as an automatic negative, and then they'll be like, oh, well, this thing was woke, but I thought it was okay. Well, is it a negative or not? Because half time you just say, oh, it's woke. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
Woke is putting diversity of the cast above anything else.
I don't know
and
how to measure that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, show me where you are weighing this. And it really just goes to show that it's the idea of diversity being something inherently negative and not the default. They think the default is the way things have always been, when really media is adapting to represent reality more based on sheer numbers. There should be more female superheroes than males. If they want to start saying that, okay, woke can be done well, and sometimes woke is good, like, the same as acting or whatever, like, okay, fine. I guess that's like anything else. It can be good or bad, but stop using it as if it's like just because you got a whole legion of YouTubers that just think that's all you got to say, and the thing is therefore criticized. It's a really easy, lazy way to just say you don't like, you don't
like the message.
DeSantis, chief warrior in the crusade against wokeness, has hurled the word at so many targets as to render it meaningless. That seems common. Fortunately, some members of his office have opened up about what they consider the definition of the word woke to be, and said a lot about their politics while they were at it. The question of the meaning of the word came up during a Florida trial over the potential reinstatement of Democratic State Attorney Andrew Warren, whom DeSantis suspended after Warren signed a pledge not to prosecute abortion seekers or providers. DeSantis argued that Warren's pledge signaled a failure to perform his duties. All right, so right there we can tell that DeSantis thinks that women's reproductive rights are wokeness, and that's already the original definition of woke came from the African American community, and it was just about the racial inequities of the system generally, like that. And these guys are the ones that broadened it to basically just mean whatever we don't like. Well, actually, Turf, over in your dimension, do you are there a lot of people around you in real life kind of thing that take woke seriously or anything?
Not much. I once in a while hear woke said, like, mentioned by like a friend or like someone who I'm like working in a group with or something, but it's often in like I don't know, it's they refer to it as like a bad kind of woke, I guess. But like my university is also very like left leaning, I guess, so it's not a very it's not a hive mind for these types of people. So it's definitely not as prevalent, I think.
Well, I have an interesting perspective because right now, I'm in Ohio, which is one of the bastions of Republicans. It seems like Ohio is one of the few states that was good Republicans during this last election, although it wasn't perfect. In my real life, talk to everyday people, even about movies. I don't recall if woke has ever been brought up once. It's dominated online discourse somehow, and it's not a real life thing that people actually talk about, that I've noticed.
Yeah, because I feel like also like in real life, you just get looked at weird, if you're like, oh, I didn't like this movie, and you're like, oh, why not? Because it's woke, people will be like, huh. Because I feel like most people in real life aren't like the type of people who are online or spouting, like screaming about wokeness. Most people in real life aren't those kinds of people, so I feel like these people can't use the term the same way in real life.
Yeah, the only people I've met in real life actually that do bring it up are people who agree with me on it, that's meaningless, and they just throw it around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's probably for the same reason that none of these guys want to debate and defend their ideas, or a lot of them don't like to show their face, is that they're probably out there. We probably walk past them on a regular basis out in public and stuff, but they're not going to go around making these claims and shit. It's really just an internet. I feel safe on the internet, and I'm anonymous, and I can say this stuff that's inside my heart, but otherwise I'm a coward. Taryn Finsky, DeSantis's communications director, said woke was a slang term for activism, progressive activism, and a general belief in systemic injustices in the country. So
reading these responses are so funny. Just those like oh, woke is progressive activism, or woke is the belief that there are systemic injustices in America and that we need to address them. Like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can read that, right, as someone who uses the term woke, right, and just think, oh yeah, I'm in the right.
Yeah. No, it's essentially they're just kind of showing their hand. It's like almost like they're saying woke is a belief that we can make the country better.
Yeah.
Is that wrong?
I love the part where it's like Newman added that DeSantis doesn't believe there are systemic justices. Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah, you have to add that.
We knew that, but it's
okay.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that, right? But it's like, it's just so open-handed. I'm like, wow.
And it's also so kind of nebulous that it honestly could apply to stuff that they believe eventually. You know what I mean? Of course, they wouldn't be held to the same standard because they have no real standards except double standards. But it could apply to, let me try and think. I mean, for one thing, the election meddling claims, that's a systemic injustice. If you believe that, it's not true. It's been debunked countless times. But if you believe that's what happened, that the election was stolen, that's a systemic injustice. You can't believe that anymore. We can't have that.
What about just wokeness itself, right? If wokeness is being spouted by the government and the political leaders, right, and it's oppressing many good Americans, isn't that systemic injustice too?
It is. So they're woke eats itself. It becomes an Ouroboros at that point and is eating its own ass. Yeah, the civil rights movement would be woke, but I mean that's the thing. They at the very least will act like. I mean, you'll hear from some who just think the Civil Rights Act shouldn't have happened, but most of them will generally, Ben Shapiro and stuff. They're like, the Civil Rights Act was great and it should have stopped there. You know what I mean? Like that's it. And they're legit people that think that just things were fine after that.
Ben Shapiro literally said that in my latest video, the clip I showed, where he's like, the left, they like to pay a lot of attention to the Civil Rights Act movement, which they should, because that was good. But now they want to switch the conversation to gay marriage, and that's where I draw the line. It's
that's a great point. Sorry, that's that's why it came to mind. Turf was because I just watched your video yesterday. So.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the argument. Oh, Obama won in 2008, therefore racism is over. No.
Well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and this is something that
guys, we're good.
We're good.
This is something that my friend Willow and I, Questing Refuge, have talked about a good bit. There's just the main distinction between, I guess, us and them, at least, people more left leaning and then people on the right, is that they don't look at the systems generally. They don't, they'll look at anecdotes and think that proves something. And so they don't like data. They don't like to analyze systems. So it's things like, the justice system having issues, no. So example, you might say, yeah, there's some police brutality problem in the justice system and so on. And then some Republican or whatever might be like, well, my friend's a black cop or something like that, and it's like, okay, do you not know what a system means? Do you think that if there's a problem in a system that 100% of all examples of a thing are going to represent that problem? It blows my mind. And so that's why they look at they'll talk about detransitioners, right? Which is just such a minuscule small amount of people who transition that it's just bound to happen. There's just bound to be a small percentage of people who decide that they don't want to, do that. And a lot of times that's because they've been socially pressured into it. You know what I mean? Or they weren't But they want to act like that's just the biggest problem with transitioning as a trans person. So
they're also just so bad at understanding like data and analyzing it, you know, or like actually interpreting it. Every single operation that's voluntary has percentages of regret, and pretty much all of them are the same, if not higher, than transitioning. If you only look at transitioning in a void, then yes, you can make this statement that, oh, some people are they end up regretting it. Cool, right? But that's the same with every single operation you can get that's voluntary. They look at data, they look at evidence, and they don't do anything with it. They just go the exact opposite way.
It's and this is why I focus on the objectivity thing a good amount on my channel, and I've talked about it a lot, and more recently have been addressing it. It does seem to be a commonality with conservatism that like they just think that their perspective is the perspective, right? Like, and anything outside of their understanding is aberrant and shouldn't exist or whatever. That basically it's something that's at the very least weird and wrong, and sometimes it's out to get them or whatever. And it's just this. There's been studies that show that conservatives generally have an overactive fear response to just things they don't understand or whatever, and they run with it. It's a problem. I feel like that's an underlying issue, that they'll just say, oh, well, I had this thing happen or whatever, and I turned out okay, or some justification like that. And it's like, well, that's fine. That's cool that was your experience, but what about other experiences that you're not considering, and you're basing all these, extreme measures that you'd like to have and, legislated on? It's frustrating trying to get through to people like that.
Yeah, and also like the whole like them just leaning so much against anecdotes for like single experiences. It's also why like minority Republicans are so dangerous, because like like I don't, for example, like Candace Owens, right? Who's like a black woman, right? And like Republican conservative, and she just keeps saying like, well, I'm a woman and I'm a black person, right? I'm not oppressed. I made it through. And then they're like, yes, hell yes. This completely goes against the entire like systemic and structural argument that the left has made, right? And it's so dangerous, but it just works. Being a minority and being Republican is such a good way,
to make money.
Yes,
they love their identity politics. No matter how much they say they don't like it, they love it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I don't know. Like it's hard to get in the head of somebody like that, and maybe they just don't see or don't care about what their rhetoric and their beliefs are doing to people of their own race. Maybe they just don't. I don't know. You can't really understand it.
I don't understand it.
That's what we're supposed to believe is tearing the country apart. Belief in systemic injustices. When asked what woke means more generally, Newman said it would be the belief that there are systemic injustices and we need to address them. So they just think things should be just the way they are, but more than that, they want things to go backward. And this is a way, by throwing it all under the term woke, under that umbrella, this is a way for them to, in their minds, I'm sure, basically just make that happen once and for all. Because if you can get that on the books, that's it. No more progressivism. And that the reason that they're doing this these days, and the reason they're going so hard on this stuff, is because like the Chuds talk about a culture war. It doesn't exist. If it did, they lost. Most people don't agree with these ideas. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about, people you see in everyday life, that they would watch a nerd-rotic video and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with this guy?" And
they look at a thumbnail and say that.
they have to. It's inorganic attempt to look like there's more of a demand for this type of thing than there is. And that's why people on YouTube think that that's really what's going on, because they don't realize they're in a fucking echo chamber on YouTube.
The thing is, this like overly simplistic definition of woke is also just dangerous, because it's like they're I can't see them like actually creating laws that just like outright bans like activism, but it's like, but if they do, like, then it would be fucking harmful as shit. Then it would be horrendous,
That was
just, it's scary that that's what they're going for.
The thing that the right's really good at, that I really wish we generally would get better at, and I'm trying to work on it, is how they frame stuff. They're fucking excellent. They're masters at the framing the narrative in a certain way that, you know, it benefits them that being simplistic the way that they are, you know, that helps, because so many people don't want to take the time, you know, to get context on stuff and look at, you know, the different statements and weigh that against reality and whatnot. But like, we need to start framing this as they're against free speech.
Absolutely.
They're thought policing, you know, like literally they want to, if they manage to ban the word woke or any kind of discussion about it or whatever, like, how do they not see that that's what it is? It's the same thing as, you know, the commie witch hunt in the 50s and stuff. It's just throw everything we don't like under this term, and this is actually a threat to our country and our values and stuff.
I feel like they would just respond with like, oh, but this is what you guys are doing, right? We're just giving back. Like, you guys are just the ones throwing everyone else under the bus, right? We're just retaliating, you know? Like, there's just no getting through to them, or at least it's very difficult.
Truly is. Yeah. Truly is. Let's see if there's anything else worth. It's important to remember that DeSantis can't hide behind the excuse of ignorance or incompetence, as former President Trump often did. Surely during his undergraduate coursework at Yale or his law studies at Harvard, DeSantis encountered some discussion of redlining, environmental racism, discriminatory policing, or any of the other injustices that might be described as systemic. DeSantis knows that these exist, but in denying them, he divorces his action from historical context and gives himself cover to perform stunts like arresting mostly black Floridians for registering to vote when they didn't know they had been barred from doing so.
I mean, he probably did what Ben Shapiro claims he did, and just taught himself all his like law knowledge, because the university he was at, like, he was smarter than the teachers and they were all woke, and he just taught it to himself. That's probably what they all did, you know.
Sure. That's what you do.
That's charitable. I would think that he probably just fully knows that this stuff is real and just has got an agenda, you know, and the agenda is based in deception and bigotry. And